7 years ago on April 6th, 2014, playing off that very same theme of the fans refusing to do what they're told, WrestleMania 30 from the Superdome, not Silverdome, Hogan, in New Orleans. The best WrestleMania in the last decade, in this man's opinion. It was all about the Daniel Bryan story. That story may never have been told were it not for CM Punk walking out on the company the day after the Royal Rumble. Punk was scheduled to wrestle Triple H that year at WrestleMania, and he was even going to win, or at least that's what he was told. But he decided to leave anyway. And that, coupled with the fans turning against the returning Batista, turned their plans upside down. The fans badly wanted Daniel Bryan to regain the championship that he had been screwed out of by the Authority the previous summer. But Bryan was not in their Mania plans. In fact, he says in his book that he was originally booked in a match 6th from the top against Sheamus that year. They were handed the easiest story in the world to tell. For a company that likes to fancy themselves, oh, we're storytellers. They were gifted the greatest possible story they could have had. And only told that story after their hand was forced into doing so. It's like someone who drops a $20 bill in the street only to find a $50 laying on the sidewalk right around the corner. They lucked into this storyline. They were badly misguided, bringing Batista back when they did to win the Royal Rumble. Nobody wanted to see Batista win over Daniel Bryan. I say nobody. I mean, there were some people who didn't like Daniel Bryan, thought he was too small. He looks like a goat. Not everybody was a Daniel Bryan fan, but by and large, fan sentiment, certainly in the buildings, they weren't looking to see Batista win the Royal Rumble. I think they would have been fine with Batista coming back. But of all the times to, book a Batista win like that, you do it at a time when that Royal Rumble, it was a slam dunk. It should have been the easiest thing in the world. Even Big Dave knew it. He wanted to be a heel. They said, no, we're going to bring it back as a babyface. Even he was smart enough to know. He saw the writing on the wall. He knew what was going to happen. And when he won the Rumble to win that match with Randy Orton at WrestleMania, and Bryan was not even in the match, the fans rebelled. And Batista ended up turning heel later on anyway, and Bryan was ultimately added to the match, provided, of course, he could first beat Triple H, which he did at the beginning of the show. Actually, the show opened with Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, and The Rock in the ring together for a promo segment. Bryan beat Triple H to advance to the main event. Cesaro body slammed Big Show out of the ring to win the inaugural Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and was immediately linked up with Paul Heyman on TV the next night. A pairing that was dissolved very quickly and went absolutely nowhere. John Cena pinned Bray Wyatt in a match that he absolutely did not need to win. The Undertaker was concussed mere minutes into his match with Brock Lesnar, which saw Lesnar end the streak at 21-1. And it was the most bizarre thing that I have ever been a part of at a wrestling show. Just the reaction to the finish. We all thought the referee botched the count, especially when the bell rang and they didn't play anyone's theme music. It was as if they were confused, trying to figure out what to do next. I'll bet the referee was confused. Nobody clued him in. Chad Patton, nobody clued him in as to the finish. Can you believe that? I'm not even sure I 100% buy into that story. Because when you're handling something so delicate, you only have one shot to do this, right? To break the streak. You're going to leave it in the hands of the referee without giving him any kind of cue as to what he should be doing? Just imagine being that referee when you make that 3 count. Imagine being that referee when your hand hits 3 and there's this mass confusion and you're just hoping you did the right thing. All I could do was just laugh at the stupidity of ending the streak at all, which is why when they were panning around for all the shocked reactions, you see my face in the lower right-hand corner just before the announcement, the ring announcement, and I'm smiling. I'm the only person apparently who found humor in this. And it wasn't that I was happy about it, I just couldn't believe how stupid they were to actually do it. Undertaker was so badly concussed, he has no memory of the match. His last memory that day was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it picks up at 5 in the morning in the hospital. When he came back through the curtain, he collapsed. He had to be taken from the building in an ambulance. Vince McMahon went with him. He missed the main event of the show. When he got to the building that day, Undertaker thought he was going over. That's how late of a decision it was for this streak to come to an end. And he was not necessarily happy about it, but his attitude was, if that's what the boss wants, then so be it. He just wanted to know. He says, "Are you sure?" And Vince says, "I'm sure." So he didn't fight it. He went along with it. But when he got to the Superdome that day, he believed that he was winning and going over in that match. And in an excellent main event, Daniel Bryan won the World Heavyweight title in a triple threat match against the champion Randy Orton and the challenger Batista, tapping out Batista in the S-Lock. Michael Cole, and as I'm recording this, Michael Cole just last night on night 1 of WrestleMania botched the main event call in the Sasha Banks-Bianca Belair match. But I will give him credit here. Michael Cole had this great call at the end of the triple threat match, calling it the Miracle on Bourbon Street. He was going nuts. I thought that was a very good call. The next night on Raw, Paige made her main roster WWE debut, pinning AJ Lee in just under, or just over, I should say, a minute. Didn't go very long. Pinned her to win the Divas Championship, ending AJ's run at a then record 295 days. A record topped by Nikki Bella a little over a year later. Because, we gotta wipe the memory clean of AJ Lee, because she's associated with that icky CM Punk guy. So Nikki Bella will go down as the longest reigning Divas champion of all time. With the win, Paige became the youngest woman at 21 years of age to ever hold gold in WWE. And the Ultimate Warrior returned to WWE that weekend to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. He was back on good terms with the company. They were working on a whole bunch of merchandising ideas for him. And he goes into the Hall of Fame. He makes an appearance before the live crowd at WrestleMania. But then he comes back for a promo segment on Raw the next night. He returned for one final appearance in the ring for a promo that is incredibly haunting now looking back. He said, "No WWE talent becomes a legend on their own. Every man's heart one day beats its final beat. His lungs breathe its final breath. And if what that man did in his life makes the blood pulse through the body of others and makes them bleed deeper and believe in something larger than life, then his essence, his spirit, will be immortalized by the storytellers, by the loyalty, by the memory of those who honor him and make the running the man did live forever. You are the legend makers of Ultimate Warrior. In the back, I see many potential legends, some of them with warrior spirits. You will do the same for them. You will decide if they lived with the passion and intensity, so much so that you will tell your stories and you will make them legends as well. You are the Ultimate Warrior fans, and the spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever." He looked like he was struggling to catch his breath. He was sweating. He did not look good. And little did we all know that the very next day, while walking to his car with his wife outside their hotel in Arizona, he would clutch his chest and collapse after suffering a fatal heart attack at the age of 54. 3 years ago this week on April 8th, 2018, WrestleMania 34 was back at the Superdome in New Orleans, with John Cena in the crowd as a fan. Although he did end up wrestling Undertaker later in the show in a quick 2-minute 45-second squash. As in, John Cena was the one who got squashed at WrestleMania. Braun Strowman chose a 10-year-old boy named Nicholas out of the crowd to be his tag team partner in a title match against Sheamus and Cesaro. And won. They won the tag team titles. before Nicholas promptly vacated the title the next day due to prior commitments that he had with school. Nicholas, by the way, is the son of WWE referee John Cone. AJ Styles retained his WWE Championship over the Royal Rumble winner that year, Shinsuke Nakamura, in a Wrestle Kingdom 10 rematch that I and a lot of other people I know were looking forward to. They had a good match. It did not live up to their previous match in Japan, but it was still a good match. Nakamura subsequently turned heel when the match was over and hit Styles low right in the balls. The first of many times AJ would get his balls bounced in their feud. And at no point during this entire program did he think to wear a cup. He had many opportunities to go purchase a cup from any Modell's he could have walked in, or Dick's Sporting Goods. Could have jumped on Amazon. Could have bought a six-pack of those things. Nope. Kept getting hit in the balls. Okada, Tanahashi, and Minoru Suzuki of New Japan Pro Wrestling were all in attendance at the Superdome that night to watch Nakamura challenge for the title. They were in town. There were some other shows going on, so that's why they were in town, but they were there to see their boy. They were there to see Nakamura challenging for the championship. Tanahashi was in the crowd laughing his ass off at the Nakamura turn at the very end. And apparently when Braun Strowman was looking for a tag team partner and he was surveying the crowd at first, Tanahashi was seen raising his hand in the air. Can you even imagine if if the whole thing was kind of on the up and up and Braun was like, they told Braun, you could pick anybody you want. And Braun looks over and sees Tanahashi, probably not even knowing who he is, and picks on him. And Tanahashi's like, well, I guess I must go to the ring. And Braun Strowman brings Hiroshi Tanahashi into the ring as his tag team partner. Or Suzuki, even better. Bring Minoru Suzuki in there. I'll bet Cesaro would have known who that was. Ronda Rousey made her in-ring debut, tagging with Kurt Angle in a successful effort against Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. Stephanie's first ever WrestleMania match. This was the match of the night. This wasn't just the match of the night. This was one of the WWE matches of the year. It is seriously in the conversation for greatest in-ring debuts of all time. And it took something like 6 F5s in the main event, but Brock Lesnar retained his WWE Universal title over Roman Reigns, much to the delight of the people in my section. I don't know if my section was representative of everybody else in the Superdome that night, but there were a lot of very surprised, very happy people when Brock Lesnar went over clean the way he did in the main event. Again, it's a rare thing to see the heel come in, although you could argue Roman Reigns was the heel that night. That's certainly not how WWE was portraying him, but there were a lot of very happy people when Brock Lesnar retained that title. 1 year later, on April 6th, 2019, Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling joined forces for their G1 Supercard from Madison Square Garden, which WWE unsuccessfully tried to stop from happening. It was the first pro wrestling event not owned by the McMahon family to be held at MSG since 1960. So you can see why they would not have wanted anyone in their backyard. It really was the tale of two shows. The Ring of Honor portion just was not very good, and the fans were mostly there to see New Japan anyway. And I think that part of the show delivered. It was actually quite great. Kota Ibushi beat Tetsuya Naito to win the IWGP Intercontinental Championship, and Kazuchika Okada retained the IWGP Heavyweight title from Jay White. On the Ring of Honor side, Matt Taven beat Jay Lethal and Marty Scurll in a ladder match to capture the Ring of Honor World title, and I can tell you, he was not a popular choice in the building at that time. The next day, WrestleMania 35 was back at MetLife Stadium. Seth Rollins opened the show with a WWE title win over Brock Lesnar. Triple H beat Batista in Batista's final match. For all that Triple H did for him in his career, Batista always wanted one last match against Triple H, and he got his wish. Kurt Angle lost to Baron Corbin in his final match, which was an incredible waste of Kurt Angle's final match. Kofi Kingston beat Daniel Bryan to win the WWE Championship. This was the highlight of the show for me and a lot of people, I think. A very emotional moment watching Kofi hold that belt up and to see him celebrating in the ring after with his son. Big E and Xavier Woods were crying. Those tears were very real that night. And in the first ever women's main event of WrestleMania history, a winner-take-all triple threat title match, Becky Lynch became Becky Two Belts, beating Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey in a match that did not even go to the ring until midnight. A 7.5-hour show this was. It's disgusting. After the event was over, fans who had taken New Jersey Transit to the event were forced to stand out in the rain for hours on end. The transit agency had been told that the show would be over by 10:30. I don't know who told them that, but that person's a friggin' idiot. And when it ran 2 hours later than expected, a lot of their staff had already gone home. They had fulfilled their work hours, and they took off and they went back home. New Jersey Transit expected anywhere from 8,000 to 13,000 riders that night, and instead they were met by over 30,000 when the show was over.